California, so that we continue to bring forward that voices of our ancestors and our elders that are with us today, but our ancestors that are still crying out from the grounds. Tell them who we truly are as California's first people. That's the message moving forward. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Assemblymember Ramos. Again, we're here today as people, as family. Speak from your heart, free your mind. That's what we're all here today, to come together. Our brother that just got done speaking, he's packing that voice on behalf of all of us here today, and then some. Again, I just wanted to give another round of applause for Assemblymember James Ramos. Next, I want to introduce Assemblymember Mr. Robert Rivas.
Good morning, good morning. Appreciate the opportunity to be here to say a few words. And like Assemblymember Ramos said, we have a lot of work to do. But again, appreciate the invitation to be here. And I first want to thank Assemblymember Ramos for his work, for his dedication, and his service to the state of California. James, Assemblymember Ramos, he's the strongest voice in our legislature when it comes to issues past and present impacting California's first people. He has taught me, and I know our colleagues in the legislature, so much about his experience, the experience of California's Native peoples, and just appreciate his work, his dedication. He is the strongest advocate for our first people. And so thank you, James. I also want to thank all of the tribal partners for their work and for leading the charge on this critical issue. I want to express my strongest support for this day, day of action on missing and murdered Indigenous people. And this event, it takes place at a moment, as was mentioned, when underserved and underrepresented communities of color, and particularly our Native people, where they're facing increasing discrimination, hate speech, and even violence. Those statistics that were read to us were staggering. Ensuring that the health and safety of all residents of this state, including our most marginalized and vulnerable populations, is a critical part of our job as members of this legislature, as representatives here in Sacramento. Programs such as the Federal Alert Emergency Notification System, as championed by Assemblymember Ramos, they're essential to fulfilling our public safety responsibilities. The governor has mentioned it many times that we need to strive to have a California for all. Well, this is part of that, ensuring that we are reaching out to all populations in the state, that we're doing everything we can to address their concerns, especially when it comes to public safety, our public safety responsibilities. But as Assemblymember James Ramos said, we need to do more. We must do more, and we can do more. In my time in the State Assembly, I've been committed and remain committed to working with all stakeholders to ensure that we protect our Indigenous families, our Indigenous communities across this great state of California. And once again, I want to acknowledge the work by our colleague, Assemblymember James Ramos, as well as the countless advocates, all of you. Your presence here, as has been mentioned, it means something. Engagement with all of us, with our colleagues, it matters. And so thank you for your time, and look forward to working with you moving forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Assemblymember Rivas. My name is Terlina Pina. I am a Yurok Tribal member from the villages of Pecta and Morik, and I'm going to help with the flow of the agenda today. Now I'm honored to introduce our tribal supporters from the Sacramento area, Chairman Jesus Tarango with the Wilton Rancheria.
Majuxis, Kuchiaima, Kaneo Yase, Jesus Tarango. Good day to everybody. I'm the chairman of Wilton Rancheria, and we're just located a few miles south of here in Elk Grove, California. And when I say thank you to all the tribal and state elected officials for joining us here today, as the leader of the only federally recognized tribe in Sacramento County, it is an honor to be here representing the Central District of California. I would like to express my gratitude to the Yurok Tribe and Chairman James for leading this important discussion today. We stand here today in solidarity with our brothers and sisters from the North, knowing that when one Native person is impacted by this crisis, it impacts us all. We have all heard the staggering statistics, but for some perspective, Wilton Rancheria is just under 1,000 members. Statistically speaking, this means that of my 483 women, 387 of them will experience violence in their lifetime. As a husband and a father of 6 beautiful children and 3 daughters, I know that that simply cannot continue. It is up to those of us who have been entrusted by our citizens to lead. It is on all of us to take up this fight. This means working with federal, tribal, state, and local law enforcement to bring protection to all tribal communities, especially those isolated from essential services. We need to take active steps to protect territorial sovereignty and empower our tribal law enforcement with tools such as access to criminal databases and budget allocations to allow every tribe to best protect their citizens. As a tribal leader, it is not my job to stand here and speak on behalf of this movement. So to the survivors and the families sharing their stories here today, I want to say tangi komo for being stronger and for being more resilient than I could ever hope to be. We hear you. We believe you. We support you. And to those who are still missing, please know that we will never rest in our search, and we promise to keep fighting for change. Tangi komo.
Thank you, Chairman Tarango. We appreciate your ongoing support with all tribal issues. I'd like to introduce another tribal partner who traveled from Southern California and even brought tribal youth with her today. Chairwoman Erica Pinto from the Hamul Indian Village.
Auka. Good morning. My name is Erica Pinto. I am the chairwoman for the Hamul Indian Village of California. Like Tara Lynn said, I traveled up here from San Diego. My tribe is located 30 minutes from the U.S.-Mexican border. Thank you for joining us today on this day of action, this day of tribal action, to remember and honor the missing and murdered Indigenous people and their families and survivors. This is very real for all of us. We're not talking about something that's happening in a remote area. We're not talking about something that is happening away from us. We are talking about something that's happening right here, right now, in our neighborhoods and places we call home. The issue demands our attention. We gather today to bring attention to the systemic issues and injustices faced by Indigenous peoples and to demand change. The statistics are staggering. Indigenous people, particularly women and girls, experience some of the highest rates of violence and murder in our country. California has the 5th largest caseload of MMIP in the U.S. This is unacceptable and needs to change. To Governor Newsom, members of the California State Legislature, I ask you to hear our calls for justice and to take meaningful action to address this crisis by approving our budget requests to make sure we have the resources to do something meaningful and make a difference in the lives of these families. In order to create real change, we need increased resources, improved coordination with tribal communities, a commitment to justice for Indigenous peoples, and action from law enforcement and government officials. We need to address the root causes of violence against Indigenous peoples and work to dismantle the systemic barriers that prevent justice from being served. I encourage each and every one of you to educate yourselves about the issue of MMIP. We must all work towards creating a more just and equitable society for Indigenous people. As Indigenous peoples, we have a rich history of resilience and resistance. We will continue to fight against violence, to advocate for the rights of all Indigenous peoples. We will continue to honor the memory of those we have lost and support their families and their quest for justice. Thank you for being here today. Let us recommit ourselves to this important work and never forget the missing and murdered Indigenous people. I also want to take a moment to thank Assemblymember James Ramos for your ongoing support and assistance on these very important matters. Thank you for your critical legislation, AB 44 and AB 273, which supports tribal children and allows tribal police to enforce state law on our reservations. Two very important pieces of legislation that we should all be supporting. I want to extend my thanks and gratitude to the Yurok Tribe for your efforts in leading this way, and for all the tribal leaders here, all the boots on the ground, everybody. This is an issue we should all stand behind and demand change. I appreciate you all for being here, and look forward to fighting this epidemic.
Thank you for those powerful words, Chairwoman Pinto. I'd like to offer the mic to Chairman Andrew Alejandre of the Paskenta Band of Nomaki Indians.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Alejandre. I'm the tribal chairman for the Paskenta Band of Nomalaki Indians. And I'd first like to start by thanking Assemblyman Ramos for his support, Chairman James and the Yuroks for leading the charge, and of course everyone else involved that are helping elevate the issues of MMIP. You know, so many of our people are suffering and hurting still, searching for answers that may never come if we don't take a stand against what is going on here in California and everywhere across the nation to Indigenous peoples. It's incredible what we are capable of as people, and there's enough of us to be able to understand the issues that are going on, and enough of us to understand that we can make change and take action to make a difference. These victims need us to be the voice and the strength to bring them home and to bring justice against those creating these issues. These families need us to step up and be a support system as they are trying to wake up every day and fight all the thoughts that might be going through their heads as to what is happening to their family members or what has happened to their relatives. These communities need us to create a safe space, a safe environment, so they can step outside their homes and live their life. With all of that said, it would be very impactful if the state, federal, and local governments could join us to continue to bring awareness and to end all the pain and suffering that many of our people are facing. But for us as Native people, you think back about our ancestors, how they found solutions to survive. They came together. They worked together. And that's everything we can do together. All of us here, it's beautiful to see all of us gathered here today because we all want change. We all want solutions. We all want to see our people come home. So when we come together and utilize our resources, our platforms, we can bring change. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Drew. We appreciate your support here today and also for sponsoring the t-shirts that everyone's wearing today. I'd like to introduce now Chairwoman Janet Bill from the Picayune Rancheria of Chukchansi Indians.
Hilly Hilly, I am Janet K. Bill of the Picayune Rancheria of the Chukchansi Indians, a sovereign nation located in the Central Valley of California near the south entrance of Yosemite National Park. On behalf of our nation, Michka'is, thank you. To the Yurok Tribe, Assembly Member James Ramos, the California Legislative Native American Caucus, and my fellow tribal leaders and advocates for the relentless work and steadfast leadership in keeping the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous people, MMIP, as a forefront issue across the state of California. But most importantly, standing by our collective commitment to take action in addressing it. We took a monumental step last year with the passage of AB 1314 and the establishment of the Feather Alert System at the beginning of this year. The Feather Alert System is truly a historic resource now at our disposal. But as we all know, we must do more. As an elected tribal official, it is not lost on me that we all need to use our platform and voice to protect our most vulnerable from the predators who prey on their vulnerabilities. We must continue to dismantle the MMIP pipeline that was created after centuries of disenfranchisement and marginalization of our Indigenous people. Just as our ancestors fought to protect us, we now have the collective responsibility for safeguarding the peace, safety, and general welfare of our tribal communities so that our future generations live a life of peace and prosperity. We must act boldly and with purpose now. That is the only way to make systemic changes to end the MMIP crisis that has devastated our people and plagued our communities. Today, we call on the state of California to partner with us on the key solutions that tribal leaders and advocates propose to begin dismantling the MMIP pipeline. Foster care reform, parity between tribal police and California law enforcement, Public Law 280 education, and a historic and much-needed investment of $200 million to go towards further MMIP prevention and intervention initiatives that address the underlying vulnerabilities that make our people susceptible to the MMIP pipeline. Again, we are committed to a partnership with the state that aggressively roots out and ends violence towards Indigenous people. As always, we stand strongest together. Michka'is, thank you all.
Thank you, Chairwoman Bill. Next, I'd like to introduce a member of the Native American Legislative Caucus, Senator Scott Wilk.
It's my honor to be here with you today, and I so appreciate you coming out because it's so important that we educate our policy members on what's going on. And when you go into those meetings with your legislators today, absolutely share those statistics, which are shocking and heartbreaking. But the other thing you've got to do, you need to tell your stories. To animate action in that building, we have to connect the head with the heart. And I know we can do it, and I'm going to thank you in advance for all your efforts. And then I want to thank, I always call you Chairman Ramos because you were chair of a sovereign nation, but Assemblyman Ramos. You know, many of us in our lives are blessed to have mentors, and I know that I've certainly benefited from that. But when it comes to the role that the Assemblyman plays in representing First Peoples, he's by himself, he's a trailblazer. And he mentioned earlier today that he expects many more Native Americans to get elected to public office. And I believe that is true, and I believe it's true because of the leadership that Assemblyman Ramos has demonstrated here in the Capitol and the advocacy that he's done. Finally, again, thank you for all you're going to do. And just it's my prayer that every family who's here and across our state and nation has closure on the MMIP issue. I'm sitting here thinking, I don't even know what that feels like. Can't even begin to comprehend it. But in a state as rich as this, with the resources we have, there's no excuse that we can't have closure for every family. And I'm looking forward to supporting these proposals when they come to the Senate later this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. We'll now hear from Advocacy, Assembly Member Marie Waldron, also a member of the Native American Caucus.
Thank you for having me here today. My district, the 75th Assembly District in San Diego County, is home to more tribal governments than any other county in California. And that is why it is a major issue and a major concern for me as I represent those tribal governments. This issue has been very important to me and very important to all of my colleagues who are members of the Native American Caucus, especially safety and prosperity, especially families, especially the public safety issues that are involved. I've served in the legislature for over 10 years now, and it's unacceptable that we are still dealing with this issue. Missing and murdered Indigenous people crisis. Increasing awareness of this important issue and moving to end the tragedy of another lost life is our goal. I'm proud that we're all gathered here to take action and to honor the memories of those who are no longer here. And I want to also thank Assemblyman Ramos for his leadership, his commitment, and for all of my colleagues who are here today as well for being champions of this important tribal legislation. It's an honor to work with you on these issues that we all care so deeply about, and you have my commitment to keep fighting. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Waldron. We'll now hear from a Majority Leader, Assemblymember Eloise Reyes.
Thank you so much. This is history. We're all here on the grounds of the state capitol on land that was not ours. It was land that was a sovereign nation. And I thank you for inviting the rest of us to be here. I want to begin by thanking my colleague, Assemblymember James Ramos, Chair of the Native American Caucus, Legislative Caucus here for the state of California. Also, Joseph James, Chairman of the Yurok Tribe, and the other tribal leaders who are joining us to organize such an important annual Day of Action. It is thanks to their work that we've seen great gains in ensuring greater access to resources and legislative protections for Native Americans here in California. I'm Eloise Reyes, and I'm the State Assembly Member and State Majority Leader representing the 50th Assembly District in San Bernardino County. We know from statistics that we've already heard and also from what we already know that we have studied, that Indigenous women and girls are feeling unsafe in California. And they deserve to feel safe not only in California, but in our nation and in this world. The high rate of violence against Indigenous women and girls is completely unacceptable, and we must work together to put an end to it. When we see statistics for women and girls who suffer at the hands of another, we're astounded. But when we see the difference between statistics in general and the statistics that have to do with our Indigenous women and girls, we have to know that it is systemic. And we have to dig deeper to find the root of it and take care of that. As was mentioned before, we have a lot of work to do. But I am encouraged by all of those who are here, your advocacy here to raise awareness of this issue and the efforts to find solutions is what's going to make a difference. I'm encouraged by the work of my colleague, Assemblymember Ramos, who has shown great leadership, especially on this issue, since he became the first Native American to be elected to the California State Assembly when he was elected in 2018. That was history. Since then, we have seen his bills. Many of us have joined as co-authors and joint authors on his bills because they're righteous bills. One of those, as was mentioned earlier, was a feather alert, which was signed into law, reminding us representation matters. having the first Native American here in the state capitol has made a difference in making sure that the issues that affect our native countries, our sovereign nations, are brought to the Capitol so that the rest of us are made aware of them. Representation matters. I'm also encouraged by the work of young advocates, like those from the San Manuel Tribal Youth Committee who were nominated for my 30 Under 30 award in 2020. Those 4 middle and high school students in the Murdered and Missing Women and Girls Advocacy Group learned about the prevalence of violence against Indigenous women and children. Then they took action by raising funds, educating others, testifying for the Assembly Select Committee on Native American Affairs, and so much more. Now I see that one of our young honorees is speaking here today, and it gives me so much hope. Thank you, Raven, for your continued dedication to this work. I want to thank all of you for recognizing the urgency impressed upon us, impressed upon me, by all those who are advocating, from teenagers like Raven, who ardently speak up, to all the Native American leaders who are here, right now. I will continue to support the common sense tribal efforts that are being made to end the human trafficking and the murder of our Indigenous persons. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Reyes. I would now like to introduce Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Cahan. Okay. What about Assemblymember Holden? Yeah, thank you.
Good morning. This is an important day, as my colleagues and so many others have already noted, that in California, it is important that we continue to recognize and address in a very forthright and aggressive way the issues of those in citizenship in this community, in this state, that continue to find their issues not being addressed in the way that they should be. That this legislature has taken great efforts over the years to make sure that so many wrongs were made right. And here we are today, addressing issues of the Indigenous people of this state, who we continue to appreciate a voice that needs to be heard. And I join with you today because in this environment where laws are made, your voice will be heard. In this environment where we continue to feel the need and the pain of those who are suffering and look to redress those concerns and issues, your voice will be heard. And I do appreciate my colleague, as others have said today, for his leadership. Because it takes someone who's willing and able to step forward and bring a message of truth and urgency to the body politic. We are here today to make sure your voice is heard. It is embodied in legislation that Assemblymember James Ramos has put forth, but you bring life to that. You bring life to the cause. You bring a voice of urgency, a voice of now. And so I'm glad and proud to join with you to be part of educating our other members of the legislature, other opinion and decision makers that will have a voice in seeing this legislation move forward, not just in terms of policy, but in terms of resources through the budget. It is that important, and I'm happy to be here to lend my voice of support to make sure that missing and murdered Indigenous peoples' issues and the families that are dealing with the pain and suffering from this atrocity is heard. We see you and we hear you. God bless you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Holden. I got a message from the back from my mom that she could not hear me and told me to speak up. Thanks, Mom. So our next speaker has supported us on this issue, and we'll hear from Mary Lopez Kiefer, Office of Native American Affairs, Office of Attorney General Rob Bonta.
Miriam, can the moms hear me in the back? Notang Mary Lopez Kiefer Yawa, Notang Payong Conwishan P. San Luis Rey. Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Lopez Kiefer. I'm from the People of the West, also known as the Luiseño from Southern California, and I'm a member of the San Luis Rey Band of Mission Indians. I come to you today by invitation of Chairman James. Thank you so much. But I'm the Director of the Office of Native American Affairs for the Office of Attorney General Bonta at the California Department of Justice. I serve Attorney General Bonta as his policy and legal advisor on tribal affairs. The injustice of the missing, murdered Indigenous persons crisis must end. Awareness and action will help bring an end to the crisis. Attorney General Bonta is committed to enhancing and improving public safety on and off tribal lands for Native people. He and the entire Department of Justice of California stands with California tribes and Native people in bringing an end to the violence. As you heard, there is much being reported about the MMIP crisis nationwide. However, we are still learning about the MMIP crisis in and across California. DOJ, the Department of Justice, is actively engaging with California tribal leaders on how we can help bring awareness to what is occurring within the Native communities and how we and all of our partners, tribal, local, state, and federal, can best answer the questions being posed by the MMIP crisis. So let's start talking action. The Department of Justice's MMIP research team, being led by Dr. Blythe George, our California Native American scholar and Indigenous researcher, will be engaging with the Native community through listening sessions, interviews, and a forthcoming online tribal community survey that will be shared with our tribal partners, as well as be provided information on our website. Through these qualitative efforts, we hope to gather invaluable information directly from community members to build a more complete understanding of the experience, perspectives, and needs of the community, as well as provide the community a voice in the research process, an opportunity to shape the direction of future initiatives. We are also excited to announce our most recent collaborative effort between our office and our tribal, local, state, federal partners. It will be a series called Missing in California Indian Country. It'll be regional, and it'll be in person. These events will be held in California Indian Country, and their programs will be developed in partnership with tribes and tribal people of that particular region. Key elements of the events will include inviting tribal citizens to file a missing persons report, to receive information on an active missing persons case, and the opportunity to provide a DNA sample to our unidentified persons database in case we can bring closure for a family. The first ever Missing in California Indian Country event will occur in our northern region In partnership with the Humboldt County Sheriff's Department, the Yurok Tribal Police Department, and the Hoopa Tribal Police Department, and the Blue Lake Rancheria. The event will occur on Saturday, April 22nd, 2023. We have also been diligently enhancing current educational informational resources, as well as creating new resources that will help increase awareness of MMIP issues and bring positive actions that will improve the health, welfare, and safety of our tribal citizens. I invite you all to visit the Office of Native American Affairs website on the Department of Justice's website. There you will find information for the Native American Marcy's Law card. That's our victims' rights card, specifically providing resources for our Native American citizens. But most importantly, you will find resources by region, by county, that are available to tribal citizens that would provide victim services that are culturally appropriate for your cultural affiliation and area. We are currently developing a digital publication called Missing in California, a frequently asked questions guide for Native American tribes and tribal citizens. This document will live on the DOJ website and be a resource for tribes and tribal people on what to do and what to expect if a person you love goes missing on or off tribal lands. Attorney General Bonta has also issued information bulletins. Those are direct communications with our justice partners. The first bulletin addressed the applicability of California's trespass laws on tribal lands, and the second provided guidance to all of our partners on the enforceability of tribal court protection orders. Attorney General Bonta also supported the passage of the Feather Alert, California's first missing Indigenous person alert system and the third of its kind. Much has been talked about the Feather Alert, but what makes it different is that it may be activated when Indigenous persons who have been reported missing under unexplained or suspicious circumstances, and it requires local law enforcement to utilize tribal resources. There is still much to be done, but Attorney General Bonta stands committed to be a partner in solving this crisis. And together with all of our partners in justice, the California Department of Justice will help bring an end to the MMIP crisis in California. Thank you, and Noshon Novik, my heart is good.
Thank you, Mary. We appreciate your support. I'm going to try to turn this volume up so it's better for people in the back. It is important to hear from those who have, It's important to hear from those who have firsthand experience with this issue at hand. This subject can be sensitive for those speaking out as survivors, but we are honored to have with us survivor of MMIP, Joanna Sabal.
Wow, this is a lot of people. I'm proud to see everybody here. I'm Joanna Sabal. I am from Morongo Band of Mission Indians down south. And this is my story. On or about June 7th, 2017, Abuser V, acting with the kind of culpability otherwise required for first-degree murder, intentionally and premeditation shot a firearm, a deadly weapon, a dangerous instrument, at Miss Sabal, which under the circumstances as he believed them to be, was a step in a course of conduct planned to culminate in first-degree murder. Murder is the third leading cause of death for Indigenous women, and I was almost one of those. This is my story. June 6th, 2017, myself and my 3 young children, who at the time were 12, 10, and 7, were taken to the middle of the Arizona desert, where for the next 24 hours, we would be fighting for our lives. June 7th was a brisk and breezy summer night, and I remember begging this monster to stop, pleading with him. Please stop. Please, my kids. Please just calm down. I can still feel that cold metal from the barrel of his stolen .45 caliber handgun as he pushed it up against my forehead. I can still feel the pressure from his finger as he put that gun up against my forehead. I could hear my children in the background screaming now, begging him to stop. And as he turned around, yelling back at my children, "I'm gonna make you watch me kill your mom. You're gonna watch me do this." Then he pulled the trigger. Next was complete silence, and I found myself laying on the ground in the dirt. And I thought I was dead. But for some reason, Creator had other plans for me that night. He shot that gun at me 3 times. And 3 times that gun misfired or he missed. After what seemed like forever, I seen our chance to run. We ran off into the desert, dark, cold, no shoes. We ran as fast as we could into the darkness as we were hiding under a bush. We could hear him off into the distance. Joanna, come out, I promise. I'm not gonna kill you guys. I'm not gonna hurt you." We hid under that bush, and my daughter looked at me with fear and tears streaming down her eyes, whispering as quiet as she could, "Mommy, please don't go. He's gonna kill you, and then who's gonna save us?" And I knew in that very moment, it had to be different. It had to change. I was gonna turn this experience around, and we were going to survive. I could hear the sirens of the police in the distance, but we were too scared to move, and we laid under that bush until we knew it was safe. We were found about an hour and a half later. Creator saved us that night. Creator gave me my voice that night. And since that night, I have not just survived, but I've thrived. I have earned multiple certifications, including my Tribal Domestic Violence Advocate certification, Human Trafficking Case Management certification, my Tribal Trial Advocate certifications, multiple ICWA trainings, and a few more. I've also had the pleasure of sitting down just last month face-to-face with the Department of Justice. That way we were able to discuss the ongoing importance and safety and justice for our children and for our people. I have also been honored to speak and spread awareness across the California Indian country, because this is huge. This is big. It affects everybody. I was left with my voice, and I will not sit in silence or fear anymore. I promised my daughter for change that night, and I will fight for change for you, for your children, and for our future. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you for sharing those powerful words. Sorry. Our next speaker has experience on issues as family member as well. This issues impacts the tribal communities, of course, immediate families who are sometimes still searching for answers. I'm honored to introduce Marlena Alva.
Lasem Chaniabo, I'm Marlena. In 2019, my sister Jessica Alva, she was murdered in San Francisco. I appreciate you sharing your story. These stories of our relatives and our people, we have way too many of them. My sister, she was murdered in her own home, in front of her children. With no justice. I advocate for these funds because no one is forgotten. And as we talk about action, we must also address inaction. The case of my sister, San Francisco's services failed her. Her children were left in a home with strangers that were not on her lease. They were abused. Child custody services did not pick them up. And when they did, knowing that they had ICWA workers, they were quickly transferred out of the county to a non-native home. They said that my sister was dead upon arrival, but her heart never stopped beating. You see, my sister was in recovery, and she had a story, and she had lost her children before. She told her sponsors and her relatives and her advocates that after she got clean, she would never lose her children again. Never. And she was put on life support, and she did not die that night on April 2nd. She lived for 6 more days. In the meanwhile, her children were in a stranger's home. And ICWA and her family fought to get them back. And the night that they were returned, we brought them straight to the hospital. Her children got to see their mom. They got to pray over her in the way that she taught them to pray. And about an hour later, she died. She knew that they were safe at home with their family, and she could let go. She kept her promise. And I see her children, and her legacy lives on. They look like her, they talk like her, they laugh like her. And she's here with us. And I don't believe it's okay that they should have to live with a lie that she murdered or that she killed herself. I was up praying last night, and I was talking to Creator, and I was asking my sister, what could I tell the people? What could I ask for? And she guided me to ask if we're seeking the truth, to seek the whole truth. If there was ever a day that we believed that she killed herself, then ask what happened to the rest of her body. Because my sister's body was abused. She was tormented from her head to the bottoms of her feet. And nobody should be alone like that. Nobody should have to suffer like that. No child should have to hear that or see that. And I'm honored to stand up here, as hard as it may be, for her, for all of our missing and murdered Indigenous relatives. Because you may see their life, but you don't know their story. And I'm honored to be able to tell my sister's story, because she's still with me. And we will fight until the end. And we will seek justice. And one way or another, justice will be served. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlena, for being here today and sharing your experience and story. I know it touches us all in different ways. Now I'd like to introduce Olivia Shortbull. She has been in and out of the foster care system all of her life. She has faced many challenges as a young Native girl and wants to help other Natives in the youth system. The foster care system.
Hi, I'm Olivia Shortbull, and I'm Lakota Aglala Hunkpapa. And I'm here today because I want to I want to spread the story of my sister, who was on December 6th of 2021, she was going home and was struck and killed by a drunk driver. It's been really hard because I was separated from them at a very young age and was not able to protect them as older sisters should, or be able to. She had a twin brother named Elias, and on November 17th, he made the decision to end his life because of the pain that I was carrying on him of the loss of his twin sister. And it affects MMIW, affects everyone. It can, even if people don't see it, it does. Either way, people who loved those people, the people are, I don't know what to say, that were taken too soon at the wrongful hands, at any hands. And I've been through like a lot, and I really, I just want everyone to know that it affects a lot of people. Like I said, even if people don't see it. And it's a hard journey because as a foster youth, I feel like I should have support and people to have my back when I'm going through such a hard time. But for some people, they don't have that in the system, in the foster system. And it could put them down a treacherous road for themselves and for others around them. And so I stand here for my sister and for my brother. And I want people to know their story. Thank you.
Our next speaker has been advocating on this issue and as part of a MMIP Tribal Youth Committee, and I'd like to introduce Raven Casas from the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians.
Hamid Tamch, Nitwan Archout, Nitarmra Wakmaharj Pukpa Wachkuvik. My name is Raven Casas, and I'm 17 years old. I'm a San Manuel Band of Mission Indians youth advocate, passionate about the MMIP case. Our group of youth advocates at San Manuel have fought alongside many of you here today for the past few years. We have joined you for press conferences, public hearings, many advocacy activities from billboards to commercials. We stand beside you, fighting with you for justice until it is earned. It has been an honor to stand by the Yurok Tribe in providing a grant to have a dedicated MMIP investigator. San Manuel will continue to support this cause and advocate for the resources needed that are currently stalling progress. The power in community and one shared voice is what will continue to raise awareness needed to bring alongside more allies. We are stronger together, and with all of different entities needed to bring about a solution, we need to make sure our voices are louder than ever so they hear us. The bravery of the families sharing these powerful stories with us today has moved me. It reminds us that all Indigenous people are people. Let me repeat that. All Indigenous people are people. We have names. We have families. We have communities. We have lives worth living. We will not stand by and allow the narrative to alter the basic truth. To those brave families and to all of those families that are not with us, please remember, we are with you. We will continue to stand with you. You are not alone. There will come a day where we celebrate the closure of this injustice. Until that day, hold fast, stand strong, and lean on us and your community. Thank you.
Thank you, Raven, for all the work that you're doing on this issue. Now I'd like to introduce Ronnie Hostler, another family who has unfortunately experienced this tragedy in his family.
My name is Ronnie Hostler. I'm a member of the Round Valley Indian Tribes, the Hoopaw Tribe, Yurok Tribe, Grindstone Tribe, with many relatives. Just my wife Lydia, my daughter Connie, that's Khadijah's mom. I have a big issue with the Mendocino County Sheriff Department and with our missing granddaughter. You know, I've done several of these parties like this here, and this is probably one of the biggest ones that I've been able to speak. But this happened on February 7th. Today, our granddaughter and her daughter has been missing for 5 years. Today is that day. So this was a great honor to come here and speak before all of you. Just want to let you know that they have our granddaughter, Khadijah, in a cold case file. And the reason I'm really fighting for her because the lead investigator at that time told me about 6-7 months later that they really messed up at the start of that investigation. So I've been trying to rally people to help me to get them to open that investigation again, because people are starting to forget about our granddaughter. They're forgetting about her, and we don't want that. The only reason we can do this is to try to open that investigation, because the night he took her out of a friend's house. The person that owned that house was staying there, described the pistol that he used to make our granddaughter make Khadijah go with him. They watched him beat her and throw her in a car. The person they only had one statement, and he told exactly what happened. Well, he was threatened by another member of the perpetrator, and so he recanted his statement. So that ended that. They couldn't do nothing. But 4.5 years later, another family member that was there talked to the lead and talked to the detective and told him every detail of what happened. So I got in contact with that detective. He told me, well, that's only one statement. I can't do nothing unless I got 5 statements. So that's where we're at now. Nothing's being done. So that's what that night they took her from the 7th. They found him February 19th. From February 7th to February 19th, what did they do with him? He didn't do it by himself. He had family members and friends that helped him. So that's when, even on the 19th of February, they weren't looking for Khadijah. They were looking for him for parole violation. So that's our Mendocino County Sheriff Department. So that's what I'm really basing everything I'm doing is what this lead detective said at that time, that they messed up at the start of that investigation. I brought it up several times, but it's not. I can't do nothing. I need all of you. I need everybody to start getting involved in this. What's going on in these sheriff departments? I need all these legislatures. Every time I talk about something, they say, "Well, you got to call your legislatures." Well, that's what I'm doing now. It's one of the biggest reasons why I want to be here and to try to get legislatures, whoever they are. The only thing I know is I voted for all of them. They all won, so now I'm asking them to help me. I'm just appreciate everybody here. I met so many people, so many good people in high places. These advocates. Really, I really appreciate everything they're doing, and it's because of them is why I got the opportunity to come here today. Because of Morning Star and a lot of people here that really care about what's going on with our investigation, and which is nothing. So if anybody, I'd like to have everybody just call Mendocino County Sheriff Department and ask them, why is Khadijah still missing? Why is she still missing? What's going on? And more important is just ask them, why. That's the first thing I asked when we had a press conference in Ukiah. I asked them why. Why is my granddaughter still missing? You got this guy. Everybody there in Mendocino County knows who done it. They know who the person is. They know who the family is. Even the family that my granddaughter was taken out of the house. relatives. They're relatives. But I can't, it's kind of hard for me to say anything about what's going on because I have advocates that are related to these people. It's really hard. I know I'd lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of cousins that I know that they know what happened to her. They know what they did, but he's back in our valley again. He walks amongst us. The family laughs at us. They're also laughing at the sheriff department. And hopefully, I hope they don't laugh at our politicians that we elected to be there. Because this is who I really need to help. Help me, my daughter, her father, my grandmother. We need a lot of help in getting them to open this investigation. I just want to thank you all. I know did I go over my 3 minutes? So all right, thank you.
Thank you to the Hostler family for sharing. Our last, we have one more speaker added to the agenda is Chairman Davis from the Hoopa Valley Tribe.
Morning, everybody. I just want to say, like I said before, this is an emergency, and I hope that this today is like a siren that goes off for law enforcement and everybody to respond accordingly, to treat it as an emergency that it is. We haven't seen the resources dedicated to the missing and murdered crisis that we need. I thank all the legislators that are here today. But we ask that you take this message back to your colleagues there at Capitol Hill, whether that be at the state level or the federal level, the county level. Imagine just for a moment that this is your family, this is your daughter, your mother, your father. Imagine how it feels, and to see the response from our leaders that just isn't there. It isn't where it needs to be, and that's why we've had so many cases unsolved. So I just encourage everybody to please ring the alarm, respond to this emergency. People are hurting. Many of them are here today, their families. Richard Dean, Virgil Bussell, Sumi Wan, Emily Risling, Angela McConnell. So many of our loved ones. They're all hurting. Please help us out here on Capitol Hill. We're right here with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Davis. Our last speaker has years of experience of advocating on this issue, and I'm glad to introduce my dear friend, Morningstar Galley.
Thank you, Tara Lynn. Can I ask for some of our Indigenous justice advocates and families to come hold these banners that are here on the right? We recognize that we don't do any of this alone, that we do this together in community and in support. So if you're able to come up and help to hold these banners, that's very appreciated. Can you hear me back there, Mama Teresa? Chimisanwi, Dakam, greetings relatives. The disappearance and trafficking of Indigenous women and girls started in California with the gold rush and the enslavement and incarceration of our California Indigenous peoples that began with missionization over 250 years ago. Our Indigenous peoples that have disappeared and been murdered over this time, we are now committed to uplifting justice on stolen land. Not only did they commit the theft of Indigenous lands in exchange for Native women's bodies, but they erased our tribal place names and created names with a slur and expletive as a way to further cause violence, erasure, and invisibility. This furthered a goal of upholding white supremacy and colonization in a way that is demeaning and derogatory to Indigenous women and girls. Today, as we honor our missing and murdered Indigenous relatives, I want to take a moment to recognize the intersections that lead to MMIP. Suicidal ideation, codependency, victims of trafficking, lateral oppression, the disenrollment of California Native peoples, alcohol and drug addiction, domestic violence, sexual assault, rape and sexual violence, complex mental issues, complex trauma, unsheltered peoples, racism, families who are placed in harm, bilateral oppression and community members, so-called not being Indian enough, a lack of family support, a judgment of family and victims of survivors of crime, system-involved youth, blind removals, and the children affected by all of the above. Youth in foster care are the most vulnerable to this violence and abuse. They are invisible, their identities kept confidential by the government, they suffer from mental health challenges, drug addiction, hunted by buyers and traffickers. They are suffering, as you heard personal accounts, and they need healthy parents, families, and communities. By assessing the needs and advocating alongside and behalf of our system-involved Indigenous peoples throughout Northern California, and I say that all of our youth, 100% are system-involved, we in Indigenous justice seek to elevate the needed support in creating pathways of healing and empowerment for survivors of violence back into our tribal and intertribal communities. For those past 160 years, California Native peoples within tribal and intertribal communities are living, resilient, and thriving while continuing to break legacies of intergenerational trauma through traditional pathways to healing. We as community members work to support this healing through community organizing, advocacy, centering of cultural practices through movement building, and action. As we organize throughout our urban and tribal communities, we are accountable for responding to the changing needs of our communities. We are committed to working for structural change and transformation of the dominant narratives in which our stories are told, narratives that blame and further marginalize system-impacted Indigenous women, girls, and men. Within our rural, tribal, and inner-city communities, there is a dire need across the state to invest in Native women, girls, gender non-conforming, non-binary people's potential to advance our rights, to address the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, boys, men, trans, and two-spirit relatives. MMIP is the legacy of resource extraction in the form of gold mining and plundering, values of excess and greed, and the genocide of California Indian peoples that still very much exist today. California Indian women and girls are going missing and being murdered at exponentially increasing rates. Over half of those cases documented in California have occurred in the last 3 years. From 2013 through 2015, the rate of MMIWG cases per year statewide increased by approximately 20% each year. In 2016, the rate of cases increased over tenfold. In 2018, the rate increased by another 250%. This represents an 850% increase in the past 5 years. Nick Patterson, Dewey McGarva, Milton Yogi McGarva, Jessica Alva, Nicole Smith, Melody Turner, Amber Hope McDonald, Heather Cameron, Khadijah Britton, This is just a handful of the names that we are here to uplift today. Some of the names that we fight daily for justice and healing of our families and communities. We are here to pay love and respect to all those sacred beings that were not able to live their lives and show up in their true and sacred self due to the threat of being killed. We know the intention behind state and colonial violence is upheld by white supremacy and targeted at our relatives. We know that Indigenous peoples most impacted are not recognized and acknowledged on their own lands due to colonial violence and false border walls imposed on sovereign lands and territories. We denounce those colonial frameworks that intentionally keep us divided and tell us that we are so different from one another. As we gather here today, let's remember to acknowledge our non-federally recognized, state-recognized, terminated, unacknowledged, disenfranchised, disenrolled Native peoples that are not recognized on their own lands and territories as continuous genocide and colonialism that has always targeted us as women and girls. As the disappearance and trafficking of Indigenous women and girls started in California with the gold rush and the enslavement and incarceration, we are a part of this movement of solidarity with all communities that are impacted. I stand here today with my sisters, with my advocates, as your sibling and relative in solidarity and in community. We say no more stolen relatives, no more stolen lives on stolen land. To the thousands of Indigenous peoples that have disappeared and been murdered, we are committed to uplifting justice. We recognize that Indigenous peoples, together, we are a force. As not only did they commit the theft of Indigenous lands in exchange for those Native women's bodies, this continuing legacy today has caused further violence, erasure, and invisibility in a way that is demeaning and derogatory to Indigenous women and girls. This furthered a goal of upholding the white supremacy and colonization, and I am happy to celebrate today the passage of AB 2022, which was signed September 23rd, 2022 into law. The Feather Alert, AB 1314, these are the first of many steps forward. You heard testimony today from our survivor families, from those that are in recovery, and from those foster youth that are directly impacted. We are here to say that we denounce resource extraction in all forms, especially the extraction of California Indian girls, women, and peoples. We uplift the protection of Indigenous bodies on stolen land. Tolokwaitu.com, all my relations.
Thank you, Morning Star, for your work, your leadership that you have been doing for years. Thank you. I want to thank all the speakers here today. I want to thank all the families, the victims. You heard their stories, you know. This is about us and we together as a family. Again, as I mentioned earlier, and my brothers did, it's beautiful out there, looking out there. When you go home, you travel home, north, south, inland to the mountains, you know, hug your family. Hug your family. Give prayer, give thanks, thank the Creator. You know, we got some work yet to do. And again, that's why we're here today, is us and we moving this forward as tribes, as a state, as advocates, as organizations, coming together, ringing that bell. California, driven by Indigenous. And again, I just wanted to give thanks for that. I also want to give thanks to our young ladies that have been standing up here for nearly 2 hours. They're here with us too, providing that prayer, doing what we do, They answered the bell. And again, with that concludes our long press conference here. We got some cultural sharing. We got Chairman Tarango in his group. We also followed by intertribal bird singers there, Mr. Wayne Nelson. Followed by that, we have a brush dance demonstration with Yurok, Karuk, and Hoopa. And followed by that will be a march led by Tara Lynn and Morning Star. Later, also, we'll have an open mic for anybody that wants to speak. With that, thank you.
Matt, we can just move all that.